This
is Woodside Church Kids.
Hi, my name is Vicky and I'm one of the leaders at Engage at Woodside East in Bedford, and today I'm going to tell you the story of one of the characters that you definitely know about in the Bible. Now, before I start, I normally give the children a little bit of history and a bit of context to what I'm going to read them for their story. So I'm going to tell you the story about David. Now, you know that the year now is 2020, so imagine this is here, 2020, and go back until the year gets to naught, okay? So here we are at naught, and that's when Jesus was born. And if you go back before Jesus was born, the numbers start getting bigger again. So our year is 2020, Jesus was born on 0, and this is going back to the year 1035-ish, and that's when a boy called David was born. Now, come forward a bit till he's about 10 to 13 years old, and the year is about 1025, that sort of 1025 BC. So David's 10 to 13 years old, and we're going to start in the book of Samuel. And I'm going to read straight from the Bible, as I usually do, because it's really good to read straight from the Bible. So this book is a New Living Translation, and I like this because it gives me a little bit of history underneath it and just puts things in context for me too. So here we go. This is 1 Samuel 16. You can follow in your Bible too if you want to, or you can just sit and listen. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "You have mourned long enough for Saul." Now Saul was a king, and mourned means you'd been upset for, sad for, you've been sad enough for long enough for Saul. "I have rejected him as the king of Israel. So fill your flask with olive oil and go to Bethlehem. Find a man named Jesse who lives there, for I have selected one of his sons to be my king." But Samuel said, "How can I do that? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." "Well, take a heifer," that's a cow. "Take a heifer with you," the Lord replied, "and say that you have come to make a sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you which one of his sons to anoint for me." So Samuel did as the Lord instructed, and when he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town came trembling to meet him, because you've got to remember they were really worried what he was doing there. "And what's wrong?" they asked. "Do you come in peace?" I think maybe they thought he was going to cause a lot of trouble there, but he wasn't. "Yes, I do come in peace." "Yes," replied Samuel. "I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Purify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." And that just basically, purify yourselves just basically means come and wash your clothes, wash your bodies, get yourself ready to come. A bit like on a Sunday, you hear some people just rock up to church, and other people, they have a lot of prayer time before they go to church, just so they're ready to start worshipping and giving their whole time and their whole being to Jesus. So this is purify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. Then Samuel performed the purification rite for Jesse and his sons and invited them to come to the sacrifice too. When they arrived, Samuel took one at Eliab, which is the eldest son, and thought, "Surely this is the God's anointed. This is Eliab, the first son. Surely he's got to be the king. He's going to be the anointed one." No, this is God we're talking about. God doesn't work like humans do. So the Lord said to Samuel, "Don't judge by his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way that you do. People judge by outward appearance, what people look like, but the Lord looks at the heart inside." And then Jesse told his son about Abinadab and told him to step forward and to walk in front of Samuel. So Abinadab stepped forward and walked in front of Samuel. Again, Samuel said, "Neither is this one the Lord has chosen." So, in the same way, all of 7 sons of Jesse's were presented to Samuel. So Shemaiah, he came along. He wasn't the right one. Nathanael, he's not the right one. Radai, he's not the right one. And the sixth child, Ozem, he's not the right one either. Now those names aren't listed in this part of in 1 Samuel 16. I had to go to a book called 1 Chronicles 2:13, and they're listed along with millions of other names, but they're listed as Jesse's sons. They're all written down, which is really funny because in some Bibles, I've read that some of the younger children's Bibles, it says that he had 8 sons, but this doesn't. It says the seventh. It says the 7. In the same way, all 7 sons were presented to Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen any of these." Then Samuel asked, "Are all these the sons you have?" "Well, there is still the youngest," Jesse replied, "but he's out in the field watching the sheep and my goats." "Well, send for him at once," Samuel said. We'll not sit down to eat until he arrives." So Jesse sent for him, and he was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes. Come forward, David. Come forward. Come here. What's this? What's this? Good boy. Sit down. Sit down. This is David, and he's just my dog Manny. And today I'm using him as a thing that not even a tool, an object lesson, so I can show you what David would look like. Now David was strong. He was tanned. He would have been very, very healthy, living in the fields. And he would have looked after those sheep and those goats. And he would have fought animals like bears and lions. And he would have rescued them. If those animals had have gone after any of his sheep, David would have gone and tackled that lion and that bear just to save every single one of his sheep. So David was a really strong lad, and he loved his work out in the field. So send for him at once. We won't sit down until he arrives. So Jesse sent for him. He was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes. And then the Lord said, "This is the one. Anoint him." So David stood there among his brothers, and Samuel took the flask of olive oil that he had bought and anointed, which means drizzled oil. It's like cooking oil, olive oil, and it's sometimes scented. And they anointed him with oil, and the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on. And then Samuel returned to Ramah. So that's the end of my story so far. So remember, he was anointed. He's between 10 and 13 years old. And later, a few years on, when he's about 15 to 17, that's when in the year 1010 BC, that's when David gets Goliath and kills Goliath. And you can find that in the book of 1 Samuel 17. And then he did become king. And he became king when he was about 30 years old. And he was king for 40 whole years. And he is now buried in Jerusalem because he died when he was about 70 to 75 years old. Now what I find amazing is, I said, God only looks at the heart. He doesn't look at the outward appearances. Now David is one of the only characters who is examined from birth to death, inside and out. Even his mind is examined in the book of Psalms, and it's like a diary for us to read. And I'm glad mine hasn't been read. I really do, because I would fail. David made loads of mistakes. He's full of weaknesses and failings, as am I, as am all the other leaders who you see on videos, who you see at church. We all make mistakes. And thankfully Jesus looks at our hearts. He doesn't look at the outward appearance. And so we should look kindly on David. He was a young boy when it all started, and he went on to do some great things. He went on to do some crazy things, silly things, naughty things, bad things. But you know what? We should look kindly on him, because he was just like us. He's just the same as us. And that's why I like the book of David. I like the character of David because he is just like us. Okay, that's the book. That's the story of him being anointed. Remember, he was only a young lad, and he didn't become king till he was 30 years old. It was a long time. He stayed with another king, with Saul, for a while, and he looked after him. But I'm sure all of these stories will pan out soon. Okay, it's been really great to see you. Look after yourselves. If you have teddy bears and you want to reenact stories, do. We'd love to see them. If you want to tell stories to your other teddy bears or to your siblings, we would love to see them. Send them in. We would like to see them. Okay, take care. have fun, look after yourselves, and we will see you very, very, very soon. Cheerio, bye-bye.
Don't forget to check out this week's Woodside Kids Weekly for all the fun crafts and activities Matty has planned. See you next week!